All right, welcome back to Diagnosis Redefined. I am your host, Erica Anderson, and I'm so excited for this episode. First of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, you may notice that the background is a little different. We are officially in a new podcast studio. So our office we were using as a podcast studio, so the Chronically Healthy office. And it's great, but we are within a chiropractor's office. And so they were having patients, of course, coming in, and there's a little doorbell that rings every time someone comes in. So it was not really ideal for recording a podcast. It was really hard for me to be able to work out my schedule, to be able to be there when they're not there. So Dylan, the other coach and co-founder of Chronically Healthy, and his wife decorated this area. It looks fantastic. I'm super excited. And so now I get to pop in here whenever I need to record. So thank you, Dylan and Sadie, for making this possible. And yeah, I am super excited for this episode. This is something that I've been thinking about for a really long time because as a coach who works in functional medicine, it has been very frustrating to hear people's stories when they come to see us and they say, well, I was seeing a functional medicine practitioner. And then as they talk, we're like, wow, that is not functional medicine. And basically what's happening is that functional medicine, that term is getting popular. People are demanding better care. They're tired of the conventional pill for every ill system, and they're wanting to address their chronic illnesses at the root. And so they're searching for functional medicine. And because it's becoming so popular, there are practitioners who are coming out and saying, oh yeah, I'm functional medicine, and they're not. So in this episode, I am going to be breaking down what to look out for in functional medicine. I'm going to give you 5 red flags to look out for when you are meeting with a functional medicine practitioner that will tell you whether or not this practitioner is actually a functional medicine practitioner. We are going to talk about the core principles of what functional medicine is and what is not functional medicine. And a question we get a lot whenever we are at our workshops is exactly that. What is functional medicine? Because we hear a lot in naturopath, homeopathy, there's holistic medicine, there's functional medicine, there's integrative medicine. Like, what is functional medicine? And the core principles of functional medicine is that functional medicine looks at the body as a whole. So it is not just, everything is divided into parts the way conventional is. So if you're having issues with your heart, you go and see a cardiologist conventionally. If you are having problems with your gut, you are going to go and see a GI specialist. And so everything is divided up into these parts as if they don't affect one another. Whereas functional medicine looks at the body as a whole and understands that if you are affecting one part of your body, it's going to affect the rest of your body. The other thing about functional medicine is that functional medicine uses really good testing and data to get to that root cause. So it's not just going to be about guessing and, oh, you're feeling this way, so let's try this and see what happens. It is very much data driven, but the data is coming from your own body. And so it is very scientific. That's another thing that we've had people come to see us and be like, oh, you're not as woo-woo as we thought you were going to be. So that is not functional medicine either. Very data driven, but it's data coming from your own body. So that is my personal experience with functional medicine and how I would define functional medicine. And we are hearing just absolute horror stories of people spending a lot of money seeing functional medicine, I have air quotes for those listening on the podcast, functional medicine practitioners, and they're not functional medicine, and they're not getting the healing that they're looking for. And so it breaks my heart when I hear these stories, and I thought I need to make an episode that just addresses this and really exposes what's going on out there. And so I'm going to hop right in to the first red flag that you should look for when you are seeing a functional medicine practitioner. And the first one is relying too heavily on supplements without addressing other lifestyle factors. And so I have heard an experience where someone went to a functional medicine practitioner and they spent $1,000 for supplements alone, just $1,000 for supplements. Of course, it was their own supplements. And then just was told, come back and see me in 6 months. So that is not functional medicine. That is basically taking the conventional medicine, conventional healthcare model and substitute the medications for supplements. And this is a thing. I'm definitely not anti-supplements, but nutritional deficiencies is a lifestyle factor, is a problem that we see with a lot of people that maybe supplements are warranted for. But supplements are supposed to be exactly that. They are supposed to supplement a already healthy diet and lifestyle. So you have to address the diet and the lifestyle of the client and not expect the supplements to be able to carry all the load and fix everything. Because guess what? It doesn't. So this person in particular, they actually had to do their own research and they found out the diet that they were supposed to be on. And they basically had to do everything on their own. And the supplements, obviously, without the diet and lifestyle, they don't really push you that much. They don't really push the needle that you need to push if you're not addressing the diet and lifestyle factors. And so that should always be key. If your practitioner is not asking you about what you eat, how you sleep, what your stress is, and giving you practical tips and ways to address those things, along with whatever treatment they're recommending, that is red flag number one. Walk out, run, don't walk, get out of there. Again, not saying supplements aren't helpful, but they cannot do the heavy lifting that everyone thinks that they could do. Red flag number two is if they're focusing on one system or one organ, essentially focusing on one particular symptom that you're having and trying to just address that. A symptom is a message from your body telling you that something is out of balance, and it is likely not just that system is affected, if that makes sense. So for example, when it comes to blood sugar dysregulation, if you have high blood sugar, the focus conventionally is, well, we got to bring that blood sugar down. Okay, great. Are you looking at the insulin? Are you looking at where the insulin resistance is actually coming from? There's several things that affect insulin resistance. It is the food that you eat. Yes, that is a big, big lever, but it's also the stress. We have seen people who have been able to fix their diet. Their diet looks great, but the insulin is still high. That is what's driving that insulin resistant state, which is driving all the other symptoms like weight gain and high blood pressure. And then some people are dealing with things like PCOS. This is an insulin resistance issue, not a blood sugar issue. That's the high level part of the symptom that's popping up. We want to dig deeper. So we want to make sure that we are looking at the body as a whole, that we're not just honed in on one particular symptom and addressing that, because that is no different than the conventional medical system, and that's not getting us anywhere when it comes to chronic illness. Red flag number 3, your blood work looks normal. So this is a big problem. So many people have this experience where they go to their doctor because they are feeling terrible. They don't feel like something is right. They get blood work drawn, and guess what? The blood work comes back normal. Why is that happening? When you know for a fact you are not normal. The reason is there's 2 big reasons. One is that they are using the standard range to read these labs. And the standard range is basically the average of what is considered normal for the general population. And since 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy, congratulations, you're normal for a sick population. And so as you more and more unhealthy, these ranges, these standard ranges actually change to match the unhealthy population that you live in. These standard ranges actually change according to what region of the United States that you live in. And so it is not holding you to the standard of what healthy is. And you are more likely to fall into this normal range, even if you are experiencing symptoms. And so you want to find someone who is using what's called optimal ranges. These are ranges that where your body is performing optimally. This is where healing actually happens. And when they use the optimal range, you can see if the body is heading towards a full-blown disease state before you actually get there. You can actually be preventative. And if you're outside of these optimal ranges, but within the normal limits of the standard range, you could be experiencing symptoms. And so it really, really allows us to be able to see the big picture here and understand what's really going on and be preventative, like I said, if you're using those optimal ranges. So that's one thing to look out for in the lab work. The other thing to look out for is, are they testing for a lot of different markers? For a lot of markers that are not typical according to the conventional and standard way of healthcare. So, for example, are they looking at the whole body in one shot? Are they looking at the nutrient deficiencies? Are they testing for some tests that are deemed unwarranted according to insurance companies, which is insane? For example, fasting insulin, something I was just talking about earlier. When it comes to blood sugar dysregulation, high blood sugar, that sort of thing, if they're suspecting that you might be heading towards prediabetes, they are going to draw your fasting glucose, your A1C, but they're not going to draw your fasting insulin, which is a shame, because it can tell you if you're heading towards diabetes 10 to 15 years before you get there. And before your blood sugar is starting to go high, that insulin is rising, and it is causing things like brain fog. It's causing things like weight gain and PCOS and high blood pressure, things that most people are dealing with right now. It's because insulin is one of the most inflammatory hormones, and it's a fat storage hormone. It's a very important hormone to our health when it is in the correct range. So it's one of those markers that's absolutely critical that needs to be looked at. When it comes to your thyroid, if they're suspecting, low thyroid issues, are they looking and pulling the antibody test? Because there's a big difference between hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. Those two things have a different root cause. And if you're not addressing the root cause of Hashimoto's, then you are just setting yourself up for coming down with another autoimmune disease, which is extremely common for most people to not just have one, but 2 or 3 different autoimmune diseases, because the root cause of the leaky gut is not being addressed. And so this is why these lab ranges need to be in the optimal range, and they also have to be having different markers, looking at it in a deeper way than what is conventionally ordered. Again, these are probably going to be markers that are not going to be covered by insurance, because insurance kind of dictates what they deem as important. I'm actually going to be discussing this in a future episode because it is very interesting, and I feel like people should understand what's going on with their healthcare. But this should be comprehensive tests from your functional medicine doctor, and it's something to be aware of. Now, how do you know if they're looking at your labs through the optimal range versus the standard range? You can look up online what optimal ranges are for certain tests and just compare it to what the report that you get from your functional medicine practitioner and see if they're using that range. So that's what I would do. All right. Red flag number 4 is not doing a deep dive into your health history. When it comes to your health and how functional medicine looks at your health, it is not just the problems you're experiencing now that is affecting you. It is everything that's happened to you up until now that creates the health state that you're in now. And so functional medicine, they should be asking you a lot of questions. It should be a deep conversation that you're having, not a 15-minute conversation on the first visit. This is something that they should be asking you about your childhood. Were you born via C-section? Did you have a lot of ear infections growing up? Did you have any gut issues growing up? Any surgeries? For women, did you get put on birth control at a young age? Do you have an IUD? Things that most people don't consider could be affecting their health really does affect your health. And so that conversation should not be a short 15-minute conversation. This should be a deep dive into your health history because it all matters. So with functional medicine, we want to have a full timeline of your life and really understanding, okay, not just your childhood and what that looked like, but also when did things start to go really, really bad? And when was the last time that you felt like yourself and well? All of this should be taken into account in that first appointment. And that is how you know that you are probably dealing with a true functional medicine practitioner if they're taking the time to do that deep dive with you. Again, not just focusing on the 1 symptom or 2 symptoms that you're dealing with now, but everything, the whole entire picture. The last red flag kind of ties into that first red flag, that first experience I was talking about, where someone was basically given a bunch of supplements and told, hey, don't come back in 6 months, say in 6 months. And so there needs to be routine and very regular follow-up with your functional medicine practitioner. This should not be something that is like, hey, see you in a few months. Now, if it's great if your functional medicine practitioner has an actual coach that you can work with, because with functional medicine, if we're trying to help people change their diet and their lifestyle, then this is going to take more than just, a few minutes in the office saying, hey, maybe you should eat this instead of that. We understand that these are not easy changes to make in your life. And so you want someone who is going to be able to really work one-on-one with you, if at all possible, whether that be some sort of, monthly follow-up or something like that. So there needs to be more continuous monitoring besides like, hey, see you in 6 months, basically. That to me would be a red flag. And again, that just really matches the conventional healthcare system model rather than what functional medicine should be and is. So you want someone that's going to give you some ongoing support as well. So those are the 5 red flags in functional medicine that we have been seeing now that functional medicine is getting more popular. And again, I'm so glad functional medicine is getting popular. There's a serious grassroots movement happening that is changing the face of healthcare, which is fantastic. And this has always been our mission, my personal mission. I know Dylan's mission as well with Chronically Healthy. When I learned that I could actually put my autoimmune disease in remission with diet and lifestyle changes, I couldn't believe this information was out there, that I had been asking for this information and I was just being told, no, there's nothing you could do. And I remember in that moment that I had to do something that would make functional medicine just as accessible as conventional. And that is what we're trying to do. That is the ultimate mission of Chronically Healthy. That is the ultimate mission of this podcast, is to allow people to understand what power they have over their own health. And so I'm very excited to see that functional medicine, people are talking about it, people are looking for it. We're getting more functional medicine practitioners out there. But unfortunately, just like anything else, whenever something becomes popular and trendy, there are people out there who are trying to take advantage. And so I don't want you to be taken advantage of, which is why I wanted to have this discussion today. And as we wrap up today's episode, I want to emphasize that this podcast is not about promoting what I do outside of this podcast with Chronically Healthy. But I do want to make sure that you're aware of all the available resources to you. And so finding the right functional medicine practitioner for you is so, so crucial. And if you don't have one in your area, this is something that Chronically Healthy can help you out with. So if you're struggling, trying to find some answers, you're having mysterious symptoms that you can't seem to get any answers to, or if you already have a diagnosis where you just, despite treatment and therapy, are not where you want to be, still not yourself, despite treatment and therapy, this is something that Chronically Healthy can help you out with. And so no matter where you live in the United States, I just want you to know that that is available to you. We have functional medicine testing, very large blood work panels, GI maps, Dutch hormone testing, DNA testing. We always test. And as your coaches, we work one-on-one with you. So wherever you live in the United States, our functional medicine practitioners, our doctors have licensing, and we can get the testing to you and then work one-on-one with you via Zoom. So that is an option that is available to you. Again, I'm not trying to make this podcast a way to plug Chronically Healthy, but I do want you to know that that resource is available to you if you need it. So I'll put the website's always in the show notes. We do free consultations. And if we can't help you, we always try to find someone who can help you. Because ultimately, that is the goal, is to make sure that you are back in the driver's seat when it comes to your health, that you understand your body better than anyone else because it's your body, and that you have control and understand how much control you actually have over your health. You are not helpless. You can control it. And your body is amazing and it can heal. And that's something I really want and hope everyone in this audience understands. So thank you very much for tuning in today. And remember, you're in control of your health. And if there is anyone in your life that you know could benefit from this episode, please share it, leave a review. That's how this podcast grows. Really appreciate, again, you tuning in. And I hope you tune in for the next one where I explain the history of how we got here. The whole pill for every ill model. How in the world did we get here? Very interesting. I hope to see you next time.